When did you realize you were falling for the person you competed against? My longtime theater rival and I got cast as love interests and have to kiss in 3 minutes in front of an entire audience. My theater rival just wrote, "Meet me after curtain," about us in the margin of my script, and I have to kiss him in 3 minutes. I am not being dramatic. I am literally standing in the wings of the community theater, stage left, with a mic pack taped to my back, and my hands shaking so hard the paper keeps whispering. The audience is already seated, and the man I have spent 2 years trying to out-audition is about to walk on stage as my love interest. His name is Grant, and apparently he wants to talk about us. 3 weeks ago, I would have laughed at the idea. 3 weeks ago, us meant 2 people competing for the same spotlight in the same tiny theater, exchanging polite smiles that were basically knives. Now my stomach is flipping because his blue ink is right there, underlined twice, like he wanted to make sure I could not pretend I missed it. Meet me after curtain, about us. I keep telling myself it is probably about the show, probably about the blocking, probably about the new professional conduct policy the board president just emailed to the whole cast, but the note is not next to a blocking mark. It is next to the stage direction that says, they kiss, and I have 3 minutes. If you want the short version, here it is. My longtime theater rival and I both auditioned for the same romantic lead. Our chemistry read was so electric the room went silent. The director cast us as love interests. Then he forced us to share one script and write notes in the margins. At first the notes were snark, then they became strategy, then they became personal. And just when I started to wonder if I was falling for the one person I swore I could not stand, my day job tried to pull me out of town. The theater board threatened to cancel the run over optics, and the entire cast started watching us like we were the show. That is what is going on. And now, standing backstage, I have to decide whether the thing in my chest is real or just really good acting. My name is Maddie. I am 26. I have a marketing job that pays my rent, and I have a second life that makes me feel like I am actually alive. By day, I work at a mid-sized software company. By night, I live at the community theater. It also means you become a target, because theater people are sweet, but theater people are also competitive. No one wants to admit it because that makes us sound petty, but the truth is, we audition because we want to be chosen. We want the part. We want the moment. And then 2 years ago, Grant Langston moved to town. I remember the first time I saw him in a read-through. He was late by 5 minutes, and he walked in like he owned the room anyway. Tall, dark hair, that calm, contained energy that makes you look twice. He apologized to Taryn, the stage manager, in a low voice. Then he sat down and started reading, and I swear the temperature in the room shifted. Some people act like they are pushing their performance out into the air, trying to force you to pay attention. Grant did the opposite. He barely moved. He barely raised his voice, but every line landed like it had weight. And I hated him immediately. Not because he was rude, because he was good, and he knew it. The first time we truly collided was during auditions for a musical the following spring. It was not even a lead I desperately wanted. It was a featured role with 2 songs and a big scene in Act 2. But I wanted it because I had been in the company longer, and it felt like my turn. Grant wanted it too. During callbacks, the director asked us to do the same scene, back to back. I went first, I did well. Then Grant went, and he did something that made my teeth grind. He changed one tiny beat in the scene, one moment of silence, and suddenly the whole thing felt deeper. Funniest part was, he did it so subtly the director thought it was written that way. Afterward, I was standing near the water fountain, replaying it in my head, when Grant walked past and said, "Nice work." I said thanks, because I can be polite. He paused like he wanted to say more. Then he said, "You hold your breath on the second verse. It makes you sound tight." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He smiled like he was doing me a favor. "Just a note, you're welcome." I should have ignored him. Instead, I said, "Maybe focus on yourself. Your timing was late in bar 12. His smile turned colder. "It wasn't. It was," I said. We stared at each other for one full second, and in that second, I understood something. Grant did not like being challenged. Neither did I, and that was the beginning. For the next 2 years, every audition felt like a duel. If I got a role, Grant congratulated me with a smile that never reached his eyes. If he got a role, I told myself it was because the director had a type. We were not cruel. We were not screaming in hallways. We were worse. We were subtle. We were the kind of rivals who could exchange compliments that sounded supportive but landed like a slap. It became a thing the company whispered about, and the part I never admitted was that he made me better. I was happily living inside our rivalry until Russell Pierce announced the next show. Russell is our resident director. Mid-40s, theater lifer, beard that looks like it has seen war, warm smile, sharp eye. He posted the audition notice on a Thursday afternoon. Title, Before the Morning. 2-person romantic drama. Former high school sweethearts reunite at a reunion after 20 years. Small cast, intimate staging. The kind of show that lives or dies on chemistry. And the kind of show that, if you nail it, makes people talk. I read the notice and felt something in my chest light up. This was my show. This was my kind of role. And I wanted it so badly it scared me. That night, I told my best friend Brianna while we were eating takeout on my couch. "This is it," I said, waving the audition sites like a flag. "This is the one." Brianna raised her eyebrows. "The one as in, you want the part? Or the one as in, you want to ruin your own life again?" I rolled my eyes. "I want the part." She chewed thoughtfully. "Who else is auditioning?" I opened my mouth to say, "No idea." And then my phone buzzed. A text from Zane. He did not even bother with hello. "Zane, sign-up sheet just went up. Guess who took the first slot?" My stomach dropped. I did not need clarification. I texted back anyway. "Me. Who?" "Zane, your boyfriend." "Me. He is not my boyfriend." "Zane, your nemesis then." "Grant, Saturday, 2 Sao, you're at 2:30, have fun." I stared at the screen and felt my brain do that thing where it starts planning a war. Saturday came too fast. I rehearsed my audition piece until my neighbors probably hated me. I ran the reunion scene in front of my bathroom mirror, telling myself to stay grounded, to be honest, to let the text do the work. Then I walked into the theater hallway at 2:20, holding my script like a shield. Grant was coming out of the audition room. He looked tired, like he had actually cared. He saw me and paused. "Maddie," he said, "careful." "Grant," I said, matching him. We stood there in the narrow hallway. The air felt tight, like the building was listening. He started to walk past me. Then he stopped. He glanced down at my sides. "You doing the reunion scene?" "Yes." He nodded once. Good choice. I waited for the sting, the dig, the comment that would get under my skin. It did not come. He just walked away, and that messed with me more than any insult could have. I went into the room with my confidence slightly rattled, and I hated that too. Russell and Taryn sat behind a folding table. Kira, our costume designer, was in the corner with a notebook. Natalie, the lighting tech, leaned against the back wall, quietly watching. Russell smiled. "Maddie, whenever you're ready." I took a breath. I planted my feet, and I performed like my life depended on it. When I finished, Russell did not immediately speak. He just looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Thank you." Taryn scribbled something. Kira looked up like she had seen something interesting. Natalie's expression stayed unreadable. I walked out and sat in my car, heart pounding, waiting for my phone to buzz with any kind of sign. Nothing. All weekend, I replayed every line, every pause, every choice. On Monday morning, while I was pretending to care about a spreadsheet at work, an email hit my inbox. Subject, Before the Morning, callbacks. I opened it so fast I nearly dropped my phone. Congratulations, callback. Chemistry reads. Act 2 reunion scene. Wednesday, 7 p.m. My fingers were shaking as I texted Brianna. Me, callback, Wednesday. Brianna, I knew it. Then her next message. Brianna, Also, Grant got it too. Of course he did. Callback night is its own kind of torture. Everyone pretends to be relaxed while secretly listening to everyone else's lines through the door. Everyone says, break a leg, like they are not actively imagining you failing. When I arrived Wednesday, the lobby was full of people. 2 women, 2 men, Russell and Taryn at the same table, Natalie near the booth checking light plots on her tablet, and Grant. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed like he belonged there. When he saw me, he nodded. Hey, he said. I blinked. Hey, that was it. No spark, no snide comment, just normal. It felt wrong. Russell paired us in different combinations. I read first with another actor, a sweet guy named Adrian who always smelled like peppermint gum. It went fine. Then Russell said, Maddie and Grant. My stomach tightened. Grant stepped onto the rehearsal stage. I joined him. We faced each other. The scene was a reunion. 2 people trying to be casual while carrying 2 decades of unfinished feelings. Russell said, whenever you're ready. Grant looked at me. Ready? I swallowed. Ready. We started. And something happened around the 3rd exchange. The air changed. It was like the space between us suddenly had gravity. His eyes held mine. And for the first time in 2 years, he looked at me like he was not trying to win. He looked like he was listening. I adjusted. Without thinking, I softened. I let the words land. The scene started to feel like a conversation instead of a performance. When we reached the moment where our characters finally acknowledged what they had lost, Grant's voice cracked. Not dramatically, just a tiny fracture like he had not expected the line to hit him. It hit me too. I felt my throat tighten. I did not push past it. I let it sit there. We held the silence. And in that silence, I realized we were not acting at each other. We were acting with each other. We finished the scene. The room was silent. Russell's pen had stopped moving. Taryn had a hand pressed to her mouth like she forgot she was supposed to be neutral. Kira's eyes were wide. Natalie whispered, oh. Russell cleared his throat. Thank you. Grant stepped back like he had touched a live wire. I was breathing too fast. I could feel my heart in my ears. Russell said, take 5. We walked off opposite sides and did not look at each other. I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed. My eyes looked bright, almost startled. What was that? I whispered to my own reflection. My phone buzzed in my pocket while I was still in the hallway. A new email. Subject cast list before the morning. My stomach flipped again. I opened it. Lead 1, Catherine Madeline Carter. Lead 2, David Grant Langston. I read it twice just to make sure I was not hallucinating. We were cast together. A 2-person show. 6 weeks of rehearsal. 3-week run. Romantic leads. I heard voices in the lobby spike. People congratulating each other. Brianna squealed and grabbed me in a hug because she had been cast as friend at reunion. A small role in a framing scene Russell added. And then my phone buzzed again. Not an email, a text. Unknown number. Grant, we should probably talk. Not about the show. About the 2 of us not exploding this production. Coffee tomorrow? Noon? Maple Street Roasters. I stared at the screen. He had my number, which made sense because the cast contact sheet had been emailed out earlier. Still, the message felt like stepping onto thin ice. I typed, me. Fine, but this is not a date. His reply came fast. Grant. Agreed. Not a date, just a truce meeting. Me. You're buying. Grant. Fair. I did not sleep well that night. I kept replaying the chemistry read, the way the room went still, the way Grant's voice cracked, the way my body reacted like it recognized something. I kept telling myself it was acting. Just acting. But my hands were shaking even when I was alone. Grant was already there when I arrived. He bought our coffees without comment, and we sat in the back corner. There was a pause. Grant stared at his cup. Then he looked up at me and said, I owe you an apology. I blinked. For what? For how I've been. He exhaled through his nose. For 2 years. That was not what I expected. I expected negotiation, rules, boundary talk. Not an apology. He continued before I could respond. I came into this company and I was defensive. I was trying to prove I deserved to be here, and instead of just doing the work, I made it a competition. And then you pushed back, and I leaned into it. I raised my eyebrows. You are rewriting history. His mouth twitched. I started it. I know I did. I said slowly, you did. He nodded once like it hurt. Yeah. I took a sip of coffee and felt my brain scrambling to adjust. Grant looked down again. That chemistry read. My stomach tightened. He continued carefully. Whatever that was, Russell saw it. Everyone saw it. And I want this show to go well. So do I said. And the only way it goes well is if we stop trying to beat each other and start trying to connect. He said the last word like it tasted strange. I stared at him. This was the man who once corrected my breathing like he was my teacher. Now he was asking for connection. What are you proposing? I asked. A truce, he said. A real one. At least for the run. No digs, no passive-aggressive notes, no trying to make the other person look bad in rehearsal. I almost laughed because he was describing our exact dynamic like it was a policy memo. Fine, I said. Truce. Grant's shoulders relaxed like he had been carrying a weight. Then he added, and one more thing. I narrowed my eyes. Here it comes. He reached into his bag and pulled out a printed email. He slid it across the table. Subject line, Briarwood Players. Professional conduct reminder. From Howard Voss, board president. I read it. It was a lot. It talked about maintaining professionalism, avoiding unnecessary rumors, and ensuring donor confidence. There was a line that made my stomach drop. Any conduct that compromises the company's reputation may mean removal from the production and suspension from auditions this season. I looked up at Grant. Is he serious? Grant's jaw tightened. Howard is always serious. I scanned the email again. It referenced recent concerns and public perception. Recent concerns about what? Grant said quietly. Zane posted a TikTok about the chemistry read. My head snapped up. He did what? Grant nodded. Not directly. No faces. But he filmed the lobby sign with our names, and then he filmed the stage from the back during callbacks. He added text like, when your enemies to lovers trope starts IRL. Heat rushed into my face. He wasn't allowed to film. I know. Grant's voice was tight. Natalie saw it and told Taryn. Taryn told Howard. I slammed my hand lightly on the table. Zane is going to get us fired. Grant's eyes flicked to mine. That's why I wanted to meet. We need to be careful. Not because we're doing anything wrong, but because people are watching. Howard is looking for reasons to panic. I stared at the email again and felt something cold settle in my stomach. This was no longer just about acting. This was about my reputation in the only place that made me feel whole. I folded the paper and slid it back. Okay. Grant's expression softened slightly. Okay. I repeated. Truce. Professional. We do the work. We ignore Zane. We keep Howard happy. Grant nodded. Good. Then he hesitated, like there was something else. What? I asked. He looked at me. Nothing. It did not sound like nothing. But I did not press because I was not ready to open that door. 3 days later, at our first rehearsal, Russell made things worse. He walked into the room holding a single printed script. He said, I'm trying something with you two. Grant and I exchanged a look. Russell continued. This show lives on subtext, on trust, on listening. I want you to build a private language. He held up the script. 1 copy, shared. My stomach dropped. Russell said, you'll both take it home on alternating nights. You will write notes in the margins, not just blocking, not just line notes, thoughts, questions, underlines. You will respond to each other on the page. Taryn's eyebrows shot up, but she did not interrupt. Russell added, before anyone panics, this is old school. Actors used to do this all the time. It's like a rehearsal diary. I want you to build history. Grant stared at the script. I stared at the script. Then Russell handed it to me. It was heavy in my hands, not because it weighed much, but because I could already feel what it would turn into. That night I sat on my bed with the script open on my lap. I wrote small notes in pencil. Character objectives. beat shifts, questions about what Catherine was afraid of. I kept it professional. I kept it clean. Then I closed the script and told myself that was enough. The next night, I handed it to Grant at rehearsal. He looked at my notes. He raised an eyebrow. Pencil, he said. Erasable, I said. He smiled faintly and took it. The night after that, he handed it back. Blue ink. Neat handwriting. And the first note of his that I saw made my stomach flip. It was next to a line where Catherine says, "I'm fine." Grant had written, "She's lying. She always lies here. Why?" I stared at that note for a long moment. Then I wrote back, because telling the truth would mean admitting she still wants him. I underlined the word truth twice. I told myself I was underlining it for the character. I was lying. The margin notes became a second script. At first, they were all craft. Grant asked why Catherine changed the subject in Act 1. I responded with a theory about shame. I asked why David avoided eye contact in the reunion scene. Grant responded with a note about fear and pride. We debated back and forth, building something like a shared map. Then the notes started to drift. Not far. Just sideways. Grant wrote next to a scene where David jokes to cover discomfort. He jokes when he's scared. Do you do that? I stared at the question. It could have been about the character. It could have been about me. I wrote, only when I care what someone thinks. When I handed him the script the next night, my pulse was high. He did not mention it. He just took it like it was normal. The next day, his response was written below mine. Same. Underlined once. I read it 3 times. Then I slammed the script shut like it could burn me. Meanwhile, the rest of the company was noticing. Zane started calling us the leads in a tone that implied he meant the scandal. Brianna caught me reading Grant's handwriting during a break and smirked. Kira, the costume designer, kept making comments like, "You two breathe at the same time. It's weird, but good." Natalie, quiet as always, watched us like she was measuring the voltage between our bodies. And Taryn, the stage manager, tightened her grip on control. She sent a group text that first week. Group chat before the morning crew. Taryn, reminder. No filming rehearsals. No posting about casting or callbacks. Howard is watching. Zane, Howard watches like a hawk lol. Taryn, this is not funny. Brianna, copy that. Natalie, okay. Grant, understood. Me, understood. 3 minutes later, Zane sent another message. Zane, also, you two. Chill with the eye contact. My aunt asked if y'all are married. My face went hot. Grant replied before I could. Grant, delete that. Zane, it's a joke. Taryn, Zane, last warning. Zane, okay, I'm an angel. I looked up from my phone and saw Grant staring at it too, jaw tight. He caught my eye. He exhaled. We were both thinking the same thing. This could ruin us if we were not careful. Russell, oblivious or intentionally cruel, kept pushing for intimacy. He said things like, don't act the memory. Let the memory act you. He made us sit across from each other and improvise a conversation between our characters at age 17. He made us walk through the reunion scene in slow motion, stopping to ask, what do you want from her right now? And why aren't you saying it? And then during week 2, he scheduled the kiss rehearsal. The stage direction was simple. They kiss. In community theater, a stage kiss is usually a technical thing. Angles, timing, safety. But Russell wanted it to feel earned. He made us rehearse the build-up for an hour. Then he said, okay, do it. Grant stepped closer. His hand lifted, not touching me yet, hovering like a question. He whispered just for me, you okay? I nodded. I was not okay, but I nodded. He touched my face gently, fingertips near my jaw. He leaned in. I leaned in too. Our mouths met. And I felt my entire brain go quiet. It was supposed to be brief. It was not brief. It was controlled, but it was not empty. When we pulled apart, I could not immediately look at him. I stared past his shoulder at the empty seats. Russell said, good. Taryn did not say good. Taryn said it, take 5. Her tone was sharp, professional, but there was a warning in it. In the green room, Brianna caught my arm. Okay, she whispered. I'm going to say something and you're going to hate me. What? I hissed. She leaned closer. You and Grant are going to get hauled in by Howard if you don't lock this down. We're not doing anything, I said too fast. Brianna raised her eyebrows. Maddie, I watched you forget what planet you were on. I glared at her. She sighed. I'm not judging. I'm warning. Howard is paranoid. He thinks the theater survives on donor comfort. He doesn't want anyone trending for the wrong reason. I stared at my phone because it was easier than staring at my feelings. Then my phone buzzed with an email. From Taryn. Subject. Please stop by the office before rehearsal tomorrow. My stomach dropped. Brianna saw my face. What? I showed her. She winced. Yep, there it is. The next night, I arrived early and went into the tiny office behind the lobby. Taryn was there. Howard Voss, board president, was also there. Howard looked like a man who had never been told no. Silver hair, crisp button down, smile that was polite but not kind. He gestured to a chair. Madeline, thank you for coming. I sat. Howard folded his hands. We've had concerns raised. Taryn looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. I said carefully. Concerns about what? Howard smiled slightly. Public perception, the company's reputation. I forced myself to stay calm. Are we being accused of something specific? Howard's smile thinned. No accusation, just awareness. He slid a printed screenshot across the desk. It was Zane's TikTok. The caption, when your theater enemies finally kiss and it's not even opening night. My cheeks burned. Howard said, this is not the brand we are trying to build. I swallowed. Zane was told not to film. Yes, Howard said, and we will address that. Then he looked at me like he was doing math. But you, Madeline, are one of our leads. If this narrative escalates, donors may withdraw, sponsors may hesitate, and the board will cancel our spring season. I will not let that happen. My stomach tightened. What do you want from me? Howard's eyes stayed calm. Professionalism, boundaries, no behavior that could be interpreted as inappropriate during rehearsals or performances. I stared at him. We're actors. The show has a kiss. Howard nodded like he was humoring me. Of course. The show requires what it requires, but offstage conduct should be beyond reproach. Taryn finally spoke. Howard ignored her. He leaned forward slightly. I am not forbidding anything. I am reminding you that this company is a nonprofit with limited resources. We cannot afford a scandal. I held his gaze. There is no scandal. Howard smiled, pleased. Good. Keep it that way. He stood. The meeting was over. My phone buzzed. Group chat before the morning crew. Taryn. Howard says this stops now. No offstage touching. If donors pull, the spring show gets canceled. As I walked out, I felt like my skin was too tight. Grant was waiting in the hallway. His eyes flicked to my face. What happened? He asked. I told him quietly while the lobby was empty. His jaw tightened when I mentioned the screenshot. He called you in too? I asked. Grant nodded. Yesterday. Of course he did. I exhaled. So now we're being monitored like teenagers at a dance. Grant looked at me with something like frustration. Howard's fear is not our job. It is if he can pull us from the show, I said. Grant's gaze held mine. Then we do the show. We do it clean. We do it so well he can't touch it. I stared at him. He added softer, and we keep our own boundaries for ourselves. My heart did a small traitorous flip. I nodded. Okay. That night at home, I opened the shared script. Grant had written a new note next to the kiss scene. His blue ink was steady. He wrote, if this is too much, say so. I'll follow your lead. My throat tightened. I wrote back, I'm not scared of the kiss. I'm scared of everything around it. The next day, his response appeared. Me too. 2 words. And suddenly, our rivalry felt like a lifetime ago. If the story ended there, it would be neat. It would be tidy. It would be a simple enemies to lovers arc with a board president villain and a script full of flirting. But life is never neat. Week 3, my day job decided to test me. I was at my desk on a Tuesday afternoon, trying to pretend I cared about click-through rates, when an email popped up from Erica Patel. Subject, urgent, on-site assignment. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Erica is my manager. Efficient, smart, the kind of person person who remembers everything you say and expects you to deliver. I clicked the email. She needed someone on site in Charlotte for 2 weeks. Client launch. Start date next Monday. Next Monday was the second week of our run, not rehearsal. Performances. Tickets sold. People expecting me. My hands went cold. I stared at the screen, reading it again like the words might change. They did not. I replied, asking if we could talk. Erica's calendar invite came back within 5 minutes. Meeting, 3 p.m., conference room B. My mouth was dry when I walked into her office. She did not waste time. Maddie, Charlotte needs someone who can handle both creative and analytics, she said. They requested you. I swallowed. I'm honored. She nodded. Can you go? I took a breath. This was the moment where adult life and theater life collided. If I said no, I risked being seen as not flexible. If I said yes, I abandoned the show. I said carefully, I have a commitment next week that I cannot break. Erica's eyebrows lifted slightly. A commitment? I hesitated. Then I decided for once not to be embarrassed by the thing that made me feel alive. I'm in a play, I said. I'm one of the 2 leads. We open this week. The run is 3 weeks. Erica stared at me. I waited for the judgment. Instead, she leaned back slowly. My mother did community theater, she said. For years. I blinked. Really? She gave it up when she had kids. She always said she would go back. Erica's eyes softened slightly. She never did. My throat tightened. Erica exhaled. Here's what I can offer. Charlotte's launch is in 2 weeks. They want you on site for prep and go live. If you can handle pre-work remotely, late nights, video calls, whatever it takes, I can push your on-site arrival until after your final performance. Relief flooded through me so fast I almost laughed. Really? I said. Erica nodded. Really, but you will be exhausted. And if you miss deliverables, I will not be able to protect you. I won't, I said immediately. I won't miss anything. Erica looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Okay, I'll call Charlotte and negotiate. You owe me good work, Maddie. I exhaled. Thank you. When I left her office, my legs felt shaky, like I had just finished a sprint. That night at rehearsal, Grant could tell something was off before I even spoke. He said, what happened? We were alone in the lobby, holding the shared script. I told him about the email, about Charlotte, about the compromise. Grant's face shifted through emotions. First concern, then relief, then something softer when I said I fought to stay. He said quietly, you didn't have to do that. I looked at him. Yes, I did. He held my gaze, and for a second the lobby felt too small. He cleared his throat. Okay, then we make it work. We both do our jobs, we both do the show, and we don't let Howard or Erica or anyone else decide what matters. My heart squeezed at the way he said my manager's name like she was a villain in a play. I almost smiled. Then Taryn's voice came over the intercom. 5-minute call for top of run-through. And suddenly we were back in it. The next 10 days were brutal. I worked full days, then rehearsed, then did video calls with Charlotte, headset on, laptop balanced on my bed, while I marked my script with my free hand. Grant started bringing me coffee without being asked. Not grand gestures, just a cup set quietly beside me during a break. A snack bar when I looked pale. A message in the group chat. Grant, great work tonight. Get sleep if you can. I told myself it was care for the show, but the truth was it felt like care for me. And it scared me because I could handle rivalry. I could handle tension. I did not know what to do with tenderness. 2 nights before opening, Russell called Grant and me into the theater after everyone else left. The stage was dark except for the work lights. Russell sat on the edge of the stage like he was about to tell us a ghost story. You two are doing something special, he said. Grant shifted, uncomfortable. I said, we're doing the work. Russell smiled. Yes, and you're doing something else too. Something the audience will feel. My pulse spiked. Russell held up the shared script. These notes, this history, it's making you honest, Grant said carefully. We're trying. Russell nodded. Good. Now I'm going to ask for one more thing. My stomach tightened. Russell said, I want you to run lines off book tomorrow, at each other's houses, one-on-one. No cast, no noise. I stared at him. Why? Russell shrugged. Because I want you to listen without performance. I want you to be people. Grant's jaw tightened. Howard will hate that. Russell waved a hand. Howard hates everything. Don't post about it. Don't tell Zane. Just do the work. My brain screamed. This was how rumors started. This was how Howard pulled funding. This was also terrifying in a different way. Grant looked at me like he was asking a question without words. I took a breath. Okay, I said. Grant's eyes flickered like he was surprised I agreed. Russell smiled. Good. Now go home. Rest. Opening is coming. The next day, Grant texted me an address. Grant, my place is quieter. 7:30. I'll keep it professional. Promise. I stared at the message. My heart was doing that stupid flipping thing again. I typed back. Me 7:30. Professional. Grant, understood. Brianna saw my face in the green room and said, nope. I blinked. What? She leaned closer. Your face. It's the face of someone about to make a decision she will pretend was an accident. I hissed. It's lines. Brianna's eyes were flat. Just don't be stupid. Howard is looking for a reason. I swallowed. I know. That night, I drove to Grant's apartment. It was in a quiet complex near the river. Clean, minimal, like him. He opened the door and stepped back to let me in. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. We stood there for a beat that felt too long. Then he said, kitchen table? Kitchen table, I said quickly. We sat down. We opened the script. We ran lines. For the first 20 minutes, it was normal, professional. We corrected each other's pacing. We argued about emphasis. We laughed once, genuinely, when Grant misread a line and turned a serious moment into a joke. Then we reached the scene before the kiss, the one where our characters finally stopped pretending. Grant said his line. I said mine. He paused like he always did, but this pause felt different. He looked at me, eyes steady. And then he said softly, Maddie, not the character's name. My name. My breath caught. Grant swallowed. Sorry, I didn't mean. I stared at him. My heart was pounding. He looked like he wanted to step back, to retreat, to pretend it did not happen. But he did not. He said quieter. I'm trying not to cross lines. I whispered. Me too. The silence stretched. We were not acting. We were not in rehearsal. There was no Russell, no Howard, no audience. Just 2 people sitting at a kitchen table, realizing their rivalry had been a cover for something else. Grant's voice was low. Can I say something? And you can tell me to shut up. My throat was tight. Okay. He exhaled. I did not come to the community center to fall for anyone. My stomach flipped. He continued. I came here because I needed a reset. 2 years ago, my engagement ended. I thought I was going to marry her. And then she decided she didn't want a life with someone who cared more about a stage than about stability. My chest tightened. He looked down. It wrecked me. I got bitter, defensive. I made everything a competition because it felt safer than caring. He looked back up at me. And then you were there. Talented, unapologetic, and you scared the hell out of me. I could barely breathe. He said, so I made you my rival. My voice came out small. You did a great job. He smiled faintly, then his face sobered. I'm not telling you this to pressure you, he said quickly. I'm telling you because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. And I'm tired of acting like this is only on stage. My hands were trembling. I whispered, Grant. He held my gaze. If you want this to be strictly professional, it will be. I will respect it. I mean it. I stared at the script between us, full of notes that had slowly turned from technique to confession. Then I said, honestly, I don't know what I want. I know what I feel, and it's messing with my head. Grant nodded like he understood too well. He reached for the script and flipped to a page near the middle. There was a note I had written days earlier, next to a line about regret. I had written, what if the worst part is realizing you always wanted it? Grant traced the pencil lightly with his finger. He said quietly, that note, it wasn't just about Catherine, was it? My throat tightened. I did not answer with words. I just looked at him. Grant's hand stilled. He whispered, okay. Then he did something that surprised me. He pushed his his chair back. He stood. He took 2 steps away from the table like he was giving me space to breathe. He said, I'm going to make this easy. We finished the run. No drama, no rumors, no giving Howard ammunition. I swallowed. And after? Grant looked at me, eyes steady. After the curtain comes down, he said, we talk. For real. No characters, no script, just us. My heart hammered. I nodded. Okay, I whispered. Grant exhaled, like he had been holding his breath for a year. We went back to running lines, and somehow, after that conversation, everything felt sharper, more honest, more dangerous. When I left his apartment 2 hours later, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A message from Zane in the group chat. Zane, y'all ready for opening? Also, someone saw Maddie at Grant's place. My blood turned to ice. I slammed the group chat open. My fingers flew. Me, delete that. Grant, delete it now. Taryn, Zane, stop. This is a final warning. Zane, I didn't say anything bad. Relax. Brianna, Zane, shut up. Natalie, dude. Zane, fine, deleted. I sat in my car trembling. I could still feel Grant's apartment on my skin, like I had stepped into a room and come out changed. And now Zane was doing what Zane always did, turning real life into content. I drove home with my stomach in knots. The next day, Taryn called a meeting before final rehearsal. She stood in front of the cast with her headset around her neck and her eyes hard. This show is sold out for opening weekend, she said. We have donors attending, we have press attending, we have Howard attending. Groans. Taryn held up her phone. We also have a lot of eyes on us. Online. I do not care who is friends with who. I do not care who is flirting with who. I care about one thing. She paused, protecting this production. Her gaze flicked to Grant, then to me. Not accusing, warning. Grant's jaw tightened. My face burned. Taryn continued. No more rumors. No more posts. No more cute captions. If you can't control your phones, put them in your cars. Zane mumbled, okay. Taryn's voice sharpened. Zane. Zane raised his hands. I'm innocent. I swear. Taryn did not look convinced. Opening night arrived, which brings me back to the moment you met me. Standing backstage. 3 minutes to kiss my rival. Blue ink note in the margin. Meet me after curtain. About us. The audience does not know any of this. They just know they are about to watch a love story. But I know how many pieces are stacked behind that curtain. A board president ready to panic. A gossip ready to post. A career obligation waiting to yank me away. And a man whose calm eyes just cracked open something in me I have been pretending I don't need. Taryn's voice hissed in my ear. Places. I stepped into position. Grant stepped into position opposite me. From where I stood, I could see him through a gap in the set wall. He glanced down at our shared script in his hands, then up at me. His expression was steady, but his eyes said, I meant that note. Russell whispered, go. The lights came up. We walked on stage. For 2 hours, everything else fell away. Not because our problems disappeared, because the work demanded full attention. We moved through the first scene, the reunion, the awkward jokes, the pauses heavy with history. The audience laughed in the right places. They went quiet in the quiet places. I could feel them leaning forward. And every time Grant looked at me, it felt like he was telling the truth, even when the line was simple. Then we reached the kiss. The stage direction was small. They kissed. But the room felt huge. Grant stepped closer. His hand lifted gentle. His eyes flicked to mine like he was asking permission. I gave the tiniest nod. We leaned in. Our mouths met. And the audience stopped breathing. I felt it. That collective stillness. Then applause burst out at the end of the scene. Spontaneous, like people could not help themselves. We finished the show on adrenaline. When the final line landed, there was a second of silence. Then the theater erupted. Standing ovation. Shouts. Clapping that felt like thunder in a small room. We took our bows, hands linked, because the show required it. But when Grant squeezed my hand, it did not feel like theater. It felt like a promise. Backstage was chaos. People hugged. People cried. People screamed like we had survived a natural disaster. Russell's eyes were bright, like he had been waiting for this his whole career. Taryn was smiling, which was rare enough to be alarming. Howard Voss stood in the green room, shaking hands like he was running for office. He clapped Grant on the shoulder. He told me, excellent work. Then he leaned closer, voice low. Keep it that way, he said. My smile froze. Grant's eyes hardened slightly. Howard moved on. Grant pulled me toward a hallway near the costume racks, out of sight. He said quietly, are you okay? I nodded. Howard just threatened me with a smile. Grant exhaled. He threatened me too. I swallowed. Your note. Grant looked at me. His voice was low. After curtain. About us. My heart pounded. Okay. He hesitated. If you don't want, I do. I interrupted, then stopped because that was too honest. Grant's eyes softened. Okay. Before we could say more, Taryn's voice cut through the hallway. 10 minutes to post-show photos. Grant stepped back. Professional mask snapping into place. He said quietly, later. I nodded. Later came in the form of a quiet corner of the parking lot after the cast party started, while everyone else was inside eating sheet cake and taking selfies. Grant and I stood near my car. The night air was cold. My body was still buzzing from the show. Grant said, you were incredible tonight. I swallowed. So were you. He stared at me and I could feel him choosing his words like a careful actor. He said, this can't be a secret that makes us sloppy. Howard is waiting. Zane is watching. I don't want to ruin the show or your job. My throat tightened. Or yours. Grant nodded. So here's what I want. I held my breath. He said, honesty, but slow. We finish the run. We keep the work clean. We don't give anyone a story to weaponize. My chest ached at how responsible he was being because it made my feelings feel even more real. Then he added softer, but I don't want to pretend I don't care about you. My voice came out rough. I don't want to pretend either. Grant's hand lifted, hovering near my face like it had on stage. He did not touch. He waited. I stepped forward. I closed the gap. We kissed, quick and quiet in the dark beside my car. Nothing theatrical. No audience. Just real. When we pulled apart, Grant whispered, okay? I nodded. He whispered, good. Then we went back inside like nothing happened. The second week of the run was where everything almost fell apart. Not because Grant and I did something reckless, because life kept throwing complications at us like it was testing whether we meant what we said. My Charlotte workload doubled. The client decided to change the launch plan midweek. Erica started sending emails at 11 p.m. I was answering them at midnight after rehearsal, eyes burning, script open beside my laptop. One night, I was on a video call with Miles, the Charlotte team lead, while I was literally sewing a button back onto my costume because Kira was juggling 3 quick changes at once. Miles said, can you hop on tomorrow at 6 a.m.? We need to review the dashboard. I stared at my screen. 6 a.m. meant 4 hours of sleep. I said yes, because apparently I hate myself. The next day, I overslept by 10 minutes and woke up to 13 GroupMe notifications. My heart hammered. I answered them while brushing my teeth, then ran to work, then ran to the theater, then ran lines with Grant while my phone kept vibrating in my pocket like a bomb. Grant saw it. Of course he did. During a break, he said quietly, you're burning out. I tried to smile. I'm fine. Grant looked at me like he could hear the lie. He reached into his bag and handed me something, a printed schedule. He had written my work calls on it, alongside rehearsal times, alongside performance times. He had color-coded it. My throat tightened. You made me a calendar? Grant shrugged like it was nothing. You were trying to hold it all in your head. It's not sustainable. I stared at him. You didn't have to do that. He met my eyes. I wanted to. My chest hurt. Then Zane walked in and said loudly, "Aw, domestic." My face went hot. Grant's eyes went cold. Zane held up his hands. Just joking. Taryn appeared like she had been summoned by drama. Zane, she said, deadly calm. Zane swallowed. Sorry. Taryn looked at Grant and me. In my office, both of you. Now. My stomach dropped. We followed her, hearts pounding. Taryn shut the door. She did not sit down. She said, Howard thinks you're dating. Grant Grant's jaw tightened. I swallowed. Based on what? Taryn held up her phone. A screenshot. A donor's email. Subject concern. Body. I saw a post online implying the leads are involved off stage. Is the company allowing inappropriate conduct? I support the arts, but I do not support unprofessionalism. My stomach turned. Grant's voice was tight. Zane. Taryn nodded. Zane. And also you two are not subtle. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because we had kissed. Because we were not subtle. Taryn continued. I do not care if you are dating. I care if Howard pulls the plug. He is talking about replacing one of you with an understudy if he thinks this will distract from the show. My blood ran cold. He can't. Taryn's eyes were hard. He can. If he convinces the board, it's a risk. Grant's voice went low. What do you want? Taryn stared at us. I want you to protect the production. If you are going to be together, you keep it off-site, off-social, and off the stage. The stage is for the show. My throat tightened. We can do that. Taryn exhaled. Good. Then she added softer. And I want you to get Zane under control before he destroys everything. Grant's jaw tightened again. We left the office and found Zane in the green room, grinning like he had no idea the building was on fire. Grant walked up to him. Zane said, "What's up?" Grant's voice was flat. "Stop posting about us." Zane's grin faltered. "I didn't post about you. It was a joke." Grant's eyes did not move. "Stop, or I will ask Russell to remove you from the production." Zane's eyes widened. "You can't do that." Grant's voice stayed calm. "Try me." Zane looked at me like he wanted backup. I did not give it. I said, "Oh, we're serious." Zane swallowed. "Okay, fine, I'll stop." Brianna, sitting nearby, muttered, "Finally." Zane glared at her, then looked away. For a day, things calmed down. Then Russell walked into rehearsal with a grin like a man with news. He said, "We got reviewed." My stomach dropped. He held up a printed article from a regional arts blog. Headline, "A love story that feels too real." My heart pounded. Russell read aloud a line praising our chemistry. Then he stopped. His eyes flicked to the last paragraph. He said slowly, "They look like they might be falling in love for real." The room went still. My face went hot. Grant's shoulders stiffened. Brianna made a choking noise. Zane whispered, "Called it." Taryn's eyes narrowed like knives. Russell looked up, suddenly realizing he had just handed Howard a weapon. He cleared his throat. "Okay, great review. Let's focus on the work." After rehearsal, Howard Voss was waiting. Of course he was. He held the article like it was evidence in court. He smiled at Grant and me. Then he said, "My office now." Howard did not yell. Howard did not need to. He sat behind his desk and spoke like a man giving a polite warning before a storm. He said, "This is exactly what I feared." Grant's voice was calm. "It's a review." Howard lifted the article. "It implies impropriety." I forced myself to speak. "It implies chemistry." Howard's eyes flicked to mine, cold. "Chemistry is fine. Perception is not." Grant's jaw tightened. Howard continued, "Sponsors do not want to support an organization that looks like it encourages unprofessional conduct." I clenched my hands. "We have been professional." Howard smiled thinly. "Have you?" The question hung in the air like a noose. Grant spoke carefully. "What are you asking for?" Howard leaned back. "I am asking for assurance, written, if necessary, that there will be no offstage entanglements that distract from this production." My stomach turned. He wanted us to sign something, like we were employees at a corporation. Grant's voice went low. "You can't control our personal lives." Howard smiled. "I can control casting." My blood went cold. I felt Grant tense beside me. I spoke before I could talk myself out of it. "We will keep the production clean," I said. "No public behavior, no social media, no gossip. We are here to do the work." Howard's eyes narrowed slightly. "And privately?" My throat tightened. Grant said steady. "Privately is not your business." Howard's smile disappeared. Taryn, standing in the corner, finally spoke. "Howard, enough." Howard's eyes flicked to her, irritated. Taryn's voice was firm. "You're risking the production by threatening your leads in the middle of a successful run. Let them do their jobs." Howard's jaw tightened. Then he smiled again, like he had decided to be the bigger person. "Fine," he said. "Do your jobs." He looked at me. "Madeline, Charlotte, I hope you're not distracted." My face burned. He looked at Grant. "Grant, remember who signs the checks?" Grant's eyes stayed calm, but something hard lived in them now. We left the office, both shaking with contained anger. Outside, in the empty lobby, Grant said quietly, "I hate him." I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. "Same." Grant looked at me. "I'm sorry you had to be in that." I whispered, "I'm sorry you did too." He hesitated. Then he reached for my hand. Not dramatically, just fingers brushing mine. I squeezed back. We stood there for a second, holding hands in the empty lobby, feeling like two teenagers who had been told their feelings were inconvenient. Grant whispered, "We finished the run." I nodded. "We finished the run?" He added softer. "And after we do what we want." My heart squeezed. After, Grant released my hand, and we walked back into rehearsal like nothing happened. That night, I opened the shared script at home. Grant had written a new note on the last page next to the final stage direction. They exit together. His blue ink looked almost nervous. He wrote, "No matter what Howard says, I'm not going back to pretending I don't choose you." My throat tightened. I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote back in pencil, careful and honest. "I'm choosing the show, I'm choosing my job, and I'm choosing you. I'm just choosing you quietly for now." The next night, his response appeared. "Quiet is fine. Real is what matters." By the time closing weekend arrived, I was running on caffeine, adrenaline, and sheer spite. Charlotte's launch was looming. Erica had confirmed my on-site travel would begin the Monday after our final performance. My suitcase sat half-packed in my bedroom. My script sat on top of it like a talisman. The theater was sold out every night. People came back with friends. They posted about it despite Taryn's warnings. But now the posts were about the show, not about us. Howard was still tense, but he could not argue with ticket sales. Natalie showed me a screenshot of the ticketing dashboard one night. It was absurd. Numbers climbing. A green arrow pointing upward. She said quietly, "He can't kill something that's making money." I almost laughed. Grant and I moved through performances like we were inside a current. Each night the show deepened. Not because we were doing anything off stage. Because we trusted each other more. We listened more. We stopped trying to control how it looked and focused on how it felt. On closing night, the theater felt electric. The air in the green room buzzed. Russell gave his speech. He said, "You did something rare. You made people believe." Taryn's eyes were shiny, which was terrifying. Brianna hugged me so hard I almost lost my breath. Zane, subdued for once, said, "Good luck," and actually meant it. Then the house lights dimmed. We took places, and we did the show. The last scene hit like a wave. When I delivered the final line, I could feel the audience holding their breath. Grant looked at me with eyes that were too honest. We kissed in the final moment as the script required, but it felt like a conclusion to something and the beginning of something else. The curtain came down. The applause erupted. We bowed. The cast came on stage. People stood, cheered, cried, and when the lights finally came up and we stumbled backstage, Grant found me near the costume racks. He was holding the shared script. He said, "This." He handed it to me like it was fragile. I took it, hugging it to my chest. He said, "Take it to Charlotte." My throat tightened. "What?" Grant's voice was low. "Read it when you miss this. When you miss us, write in it. Add notes. And when you come back, we'll keep writing." My eyes stung. I swallowed. Grant, he hesitated, then reached up and brushed his thumb gently under my eye, catching a tear before it fell. He whispered, "After curtain." My voice broke. After curtain. We did not have time for a dramatic moment. Brianna was yelling, "Photos!" Russell was calling, "Come here." Taryn was shouting at someone to put away a phone. Howard was shaking hands like a politician again. So Grant and I did what we had learned to do. We were quiet. We met in the parking lot later, after the cast party ended. The air was cold. The lot was almost empty. Grant stood beside my car, hands in his pockets. He said, "So Charlotte." I nodded. "Monday." He exhaled. "I hate that you have to go. I swallowed. I hate it too. Grant stepped closer, eyes steady. But I'm not asking you to give it up. I'm not going to be the person your ex-fiancé described. I'm not going to punish you for loving more than one thing. My throat tightened. I whispered, thank you. He nodded. Here's what I want. A plan. I blinked. A plan. Grant pulled out his phone. He opened a calendar. He had already created shared events, video calls. Every other night. Time zones accounted for. A reminder labeled, read one margin note. My chest squeezed. You're ridiculous. His mouth twitched. I'm practical. I laughed through tears. Grant said quietly, and when you come back after your 2 weeks, we talk about what we are. Out loud. No hiding. My heart hammered. I nodded. Okay. He hesitated. Then he said, one more thing. I held my breath. Grant's eyes softened. I'm proud of you for fighting for your life. Both parts of it. My throat tightened so hard I could barely speak. I whispered, I'm proud of you too, for not running. Grant's breath caught slightly. He stepped closer. He kissed me. Slow, gentle, real. When we pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. He whispered, what happens after the curtain comes down? I smiled shaky. The real show begins. Grant laughed softly. Cheesy. True, I said. Go, he said. Be brilliant and come back. I will, I said. I got in my car. I looked down at the script on the passenger seat. Our script, filled with notes that started as snark and turned into something else. I opened it to a random page. There, in blue ink, next to a line about fear, Grant had written, real is what matters. In pencil beside it, in my handwriting, was my response. Quiet is fine for now, but I'm not pretending anymore. I closed the script. I started the engine. And as I drove home through the quiet streets, I realized something that made my chest ache in the best way. I had walked into that theater wanting to win. I was walking out with something better. A person, a partner, a future that could hold more than one dream.